Once you get married, all of a sudden it turns out to be a different person in some respects.
With his incredible talent for blending pop, folk, and country, John Denver's unmatched lyricism made him a true musical icon. The American singer and songwriter, a popular acoustic artist in the 1970s, captivated audiences with hits like Take Me Home, Country Roads, Leaving on a Jet Plane, and Annie's Song. That last song was inspired by his then-wife, Annie Denver, now 78, who recently confirmed long-standing rumors, finally putting to rest all the speculation surrounding the late country singer. It's no secret that many only know who Annie Denver is because of her famous ex-husband. Yet, as a former school commissioner and TV personality, she's an impressive individual in her own right, so it's no surprise that John Denver was so taken with her. Born on September 6, 1946, as Annie Martell, she was raised in Minnesota by her parents, Jim and Norma Martell, alongside her three siblings, Linda, Terry, and Ben. Raised in the Christian faith, she attended local schools and enrolled at Aldous College in St. Peter after high school, where she met the legendary singer. At the time, Denver was a member of the Chad Mitchell Trio when the future couple met in 1966. Martell was a sophomore, and Denver was instantly drawn to her. They met again a few months later. Martell shared more details about their first meeting on a 2022 episode of the Mobituaries with Moa podcast. She recalled her future husband playing with the Mitchell Trio, and afterward, he played guitar with a group of people who were putting on a silly musical. Martell said she was the girl who carried signs across the stage, marking Act 1 and Act 2. She even revealed that her ex-husband still remembered what she wore that day: blue jeans, a flannel shirt, and penny loafers. They quickly connected and began exchanging letters. Before they knew it, they were walking down the aisle, tying the knot on June 9, 1967. The quick courtship lasted only 9 months before they announced their engagement and married soon after. Annie's Song, one of John Denver's most popular songs, introduced Annie Martell, now Mrs. Denver, to the public. What makes the song so special is that it combines all the things John Denver loved: his passion for music, his love for his wife, and most importantly, his love for the environment. Recently, Annie Denver confirmed what we've all been wondering about the song. The 78-year-old widow still cries whenever she hears it. Besides Annie's Song, Annie Denver also shared that another of her favorites is Perhaps Love, which her ex-husband recorded with Placido Domingo. Was Annie's Song born out of an intimate moment between the two? Contrary to popular belief, Annie's Song came to fruition after a life-changing event for John Denver. You see, 1971 was a crucial year in his career because it was then that he released Take Me Home, Country Roads. But a few other singles, including Annie's Song, also helped define his career. The couple went on a camping trip in Aspen, Colorado, with some friends. Being a nature lover, it didn't take long for Denver to fall in love with the area, which also inspired another of his hits, Rocky Mountain High. Eventually, Denver and his wife moved there, building a home and raising their family. However, one day in 1973, John Denver came rushing home, inspired by their surroundings. According to Annie Denver, her husband wrote it after one of their many quarrels, where they set their differences aside to make peace. In a good mood, John Denver left to go skiing. As he sat on the Ajax chair on Aspen Mountain, the song came to him. As soon as he got home, he wrote it down. Not 10 minutes later, it was done. Initially, it was a love song, and it was given to me through him. And yet for him, it became a bit like a prayer, Annie Denver said. It's pleasing to know that there's lasting proof of the love shared between Annie and John Denver through this song. The couple wasn't able to have biological children, but adopted a son and a daughter, Zachary John and Anna Kate, whom they loved wholeheartedly. Unfortunately, their love didn't last. In 1982, the Denvers filed for divorce, ending their 15-year marriage. There are two sides to every story, and we'll explore each party's reasons for their split. For the singer, he believed his success and commitment to work deeply affected his relationship with his wife. He even said that in the last few years of their marriage, they seemed to be drifting apart. Being a popular singer in his prime required John Denver to spend many days on the road performing, which also played a part in the divorce. "I think my success and my commitment to the work that I do certainly had an effect on Annie's and my relationship," Denver said in a 1983 appearance on The Russell Hardy Show. He continued, "I think over the last 4, 5, or 6 years, we started drifting away from one another. And part of it had to do with the amount of time that we spent not together, and the things that I got locked into, and not being together, and then an inflexibility when we got back together to sort of integrate the other's life into our own." Compared to the singer, his wife cited that the reason for their breakup was that they were too young and immature to deal with John Denver's sudden rise to stardom. She found his celebrity status and everything that came with it threatening, to the point that she no longer knew who she was or had an identity. Despite their differences, the couple still split on good terms, with Annie Martell remaining single to this day, while John Denver remarried a second time. Did you know? There have been rumors circulating that Annie Martell has already died, but there's no truth to it, since she's still living in her Colorado home with her children and grandchildren. Although they were a short-lived couple, it's not often we see an amicable separation between two people, with Annie Martell remaining good-natured towards her ex-husband even after the split. This is quite surprising, especially if you know the scandals and controversies that surrounded her ex-husband, especially his death, which we'll get to later. Since we've already talked about Annie Martell Denver, it's only right that we also talk about her ex-husband, John Denver. Born on December 31, 1943, as Henry John Deutschendorf Jr. in Roswell, New Mexico, he came to be known as the legendary country icon John Denver. His parents were Emma Louise and Captain Henry John Dutch Deutschendorf Sr. His father was a highly decorated pilot with an impressive record. Growing up, Denver recalled his father as a stern man who was not openly affectionate to his children. Due to his father's line of work, they often moved around a lot. Denver was an introverted child, and their constant moving didn't help. For one, he had a hard time making friends and assimilating into new environments. The first time they lived in a certain area for a long time was when his father was stationed in Tucson, Arizona, where the family lived from 1951 to 1959. When he was 11, his grandmother gave him an acoustic guitar, which he taught himself to play. He continued playing, and by the time he was in college, he was good enough to play at local gigs and clubs. At the time, he was still using his real name until the founder of the New Christy Minstrels, Randy Sparks, suggested he change it to something less of a mouthful. Now going by the name of John Denver, he continued playing even as he attended Texas Tech University in Lubbock, where he was studying architecture. At the time, Denver not only played the guitar, but also sang in a folk music group until he dropped out of school in 1963 and moved to Los Angeles to pursue music full-time. Denver was playing at folk clubs then, and it took 2 more years before he replaced Chad Mitchell in the Chad Mitchell Trio, where they ultimately changed the name to Denver, Boise, and Johnson, for all 3 members, John Denver, David Boise, and Michael Johnson. Fast forward a few more years, and Denver left the band and chose to pursue a solo career. He released his first album titled Rhymes and Reasons under RCA Records in 1969. Before this, he self-produced a recording of some of his songs, and one of these included "Babe, I Hate to Go," which caught the attention of a producer, Milt Oken. It was then reworked into what we now know as "Leaving on a Jet Plane." By this time, Oken had also become Denver's producer, along with the folk group Peter, Paul, and Mary, who popularized the song and even topped the Billboard Hot 100. Denver's own version also climbed to #1 on the U.S. Cashbox chart in December 1969. What many people don't know about John Denver is that he did most of the promotions by himself, embarking on a Midwest tour, giving free concerts, and even offering to play for free at local venues. He also went to radio stations that humored him, knowing he was the composer behind "Leaving on a Jet Plane." He was even allowed to play a song or two during airtime. All of this contributed to the country singer having a solid fan base that continued to support him even in his later years. Compared to his first album, John Denver's next album, Poems, Prayers, and Promises, released in 1971, was a commercial success. The album broke through the charts, especially "Take Me Home, Country Roads." We've mentioned how Denver helped establish himself with the locals, but the success of this album is also due to the efforts of his new manager, Jerry Weintraub, who helped blast his music through a radio airplay campaign, broadening his reach. John Denver reached new heights, securing his popularity in the early 70s with hit songs "Rocky Mountain High," "Sunshine on My Shoulders," "Thank God I'm a Country Boy," and "Annie's Song," to name a few. Weintraub also made sure he had his airtime on local TV, appearing as a guest on as many shows as he could, until he started hosting some of his own. Rocky Mountain Christmas, his seasonal special, was even watched by over 60 million and was hailed as the ABC network's highest-rated show at the time. The demand for the singer was so high that soon enough he had his own BBC series titled The John Denver Show. Of course, we can't leave out that the singer also won many prestigious awards, including multiple Grammy Awards and American Music Awards. As John Denver's popularity waned in the late 70s, the singer focused on more humanitarian efforts and nature conservation projects. He took part in fundraising by performing for the Aspen Camp School for the Deaf and even donated to the Aspen Valley Hospital's $1.7 million capital campaign. He also has the 450-acre WinStar Land Conservancy in Aspen, Colorado, which not only served as his home, but also as a sanctuary for wildlife and a center for environmental education. Of course, we already know that Denver married Annie Martell and divorced her after 15 years. What we didn't mention then was that there was an extreme incident during the division of their assets. Denver confessed that he was so angry that to make a point about their split, he tried to cut their marital bed in half with a chainsaw. However, insiders reveal that he only did it to get back at Martell after she cut down a few of the family trees they had in Aspen. It took a few more years before Denver met his next wife, the Australian actress Cassandra Delaney, in 1985. He met her in Sydney, and after a few short years of courtship, they tied the knot in 1988. The following year, Delaney gave birth to a daughter named Jessie Bell in May and settled in Denver's Aspen home. But like his marriage to Annie Martell, Denver and Delaney also split, and their time together was much shorter. They called it quits in 1991, with the actress even calling her ex-husband a vindictive bully. No one really knows for sure, but many believe that Denver's divorce from his second wife was a catalyst for many of his struggles in later years. He was charged with drunk driving for the first time in 1992. The following year, he pleaded guilty to a drunk driving charge when he crashed his Porsche into a tree, placing him on probation. After he was convicted of drunk driving, the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, ordered him to abstain from alcohol if he wanted to continue flying planes. but unfortunately, he didn't comply. The following year, Denver was medically disqualified from operating an aircraft. Beneath his soft-natured image, John Denver faced a lot of hardships, which led to him leaning on alcohol and drug use for comfort. He suffered from bouts of depression and was actually insecure despite his public persona. He also openly admitted that he used LSD and marijuana when he wrote Rocky Mountain High, and often faced backlash for being a bad drunk and for his hypocrisy. He may not have been a decorated pilot like his father, but John Denver knew more than a thing or two about flying. He even had a license for it. John Denver enjoyed flying a lot, and even took part in a VH1 promotional contest. So, how is it that a man like him met a tragic end? Was there some kind of sabotage in his aircraft? Keep listening to find out. Before we get to the bottom of this, it's important to understand the background and nature of aircraft. Like all things, an aircraft is built with sturdiness and safety in mind. But unlike automobiles, you can't exactly pull over when you catch fire, right? An aircraft would require more than a couple of minutes to pull over. And by then, a simple wisp of gray smoke from the engine could rapidly evolve into fire. For this situation, an aircraft has a fuel shutoff valve in the cockpit, allowing the fire to dissipate and preventing its spread so they can find a field to safely land their plane. John Denver was piloting a Rutan Long EZ, which is a light, home-built aircraft, when it crashed into Monterey Bay near Pacific Grove in California, leading to his death on October 12, 1997. He was 53. There were many conspiracies and theories about the cause of the crash. One of the more popular ones is the wrong placement of the fuel selection valve, placing it behind the pilot's left shoulder. It was poor ergonomics because it would require the pilot to release all controls to shut the valve off. On top of this, there's also his fuel. Some gauges indicated whether he was running low on fuel, but because they weren't linear and had no markings, it was hard to tell if he barely had any fuel left. In conclusion, his aircraft was truly poorly built, which led to the country singer plunging to his death into the ocean. Still, there were other safety precautions that the country singer failed to check and enforce, with the plane's interface only playing a factor in the overall crash. Because of this, John Denver paid the ultimate price. But despite his grim end, he is still celebrated and best remembered today for his contributions to music and humanitarian efforts that inspired and changed lives. This year alone, his song, Take Me Home, Country Roads, debuted on the Billboard chart after it was featured in a commercial that aired during the Super Bowl. Moreover, a tribute to the country singer is about to hit the App Theater on July 10th, which only proves his songs remain relevant and timeless to this day.